Well, we all know, if you've been in the FGC for more than 10 minutes, that those that are more competitively minded are all about optimization. Like you were saying, I think earlier, we were, Third Strike, there's a best super for most characters to use. There's a right way of approaching a lot of situations, and it's not just in Third Strike, it's across fighting games in general. The idea of trying to optimize Street Fighter 6 is insane to me because of how many ways you could go about it and how many situations you might find yourself in where your meter is this much and their meter is this much, and like, do you go for this strategy or that? To me, as a more competitively minded player, I feel like I'm going to have to throw that away. And I think you were kind of getting at that a little bit earlier, that it's like, no, just submerge yourself into it and have fun doing it. And you will optimize over time. Sure, you'll learn the lessons and such, but as long as you're having fun along the way, that's the key thing. And I really like that. I think that's what it's all about when it comes down to it. Like, you have to be fun first and foremost, and then worry about balance and this and that. But do you feel that way too when it comes to well, again, like how much you could potentially do in are you concerning yourself with optimizing the drive system?
The decisions are so complicated. Like,
yeah,
if you're at like 4 chunks of drive gauge and you're like, I want to do an EX move, then I'll go down to 2, but he's got 2 super meters and super takes away my drive gauge. And what if I block too much? Like, am I going to get exhausted? Like, it's so hard.
And are you going to think about all of those things in the moment that you're in that situation to go for the EX move or not?
Like, it could, there are like subconscious things. Like, I feel like I've talked about Street Fighter 4 a lot, but that was like one of the really formative games for me. And in that game, like, if you play a DP character, you kind of just want to have 2 EX bars a lot so that you can DP FADC on wake up. So I'm wondering if you'll just have those shorthand things where it's like, well, I'm not going to let myself get below 3 drive gauges or 2 or however many it is. Like, that's when things start to get dangerous and I'm risking exhausting myself. Why do I call it exhaust? I'm risking burnouting myself. So it's possible that there's going to be the little ideas like that exist, and then there are going to be hype tournament moments where it's like, oh my god, he only has half a bar of drive left, he used it all to get this kill, like, is it going to work out? So I'm really excited for those kinds of moments. And yeah, like the amount that you have to think about to really optimize your use of meter is going to be insane. And that's not even to mention the fact that now you have 3 supers at the same time. So like, when was the last time that happened? Was that also in alpha, or I guess like Marvel?
Third Strike, I think. At the same time.
Third Strike you pick at the start, but this, if you have 3 meters, you have 3 supers that you can pick. So like, that almost never happens. So that's even more options that are available to you. You have to think about, am I going to try to land multiple level 1 supers because those are the easiest ones to combo into? Am I going to save it up? Like, there's so much to think about. It's crazy.
Yeah, how I look at this, since you're both Street Fighter 4 players, is one of the early things about the meta in Street Fighter 4 was when someone hit you with an Ultra, it was very likely that they were going to try to come back and hit you. The opponent was going to hit you with an come back with it, right? So it's it charged up your ultra meter, did all that kind of stuff, your revenge gauge, whatever they called it in that game. And that was one of the early most popular strategies in the game. It was like the moment you popped an ultra on someone, like, expect it to come back at you. Especially, if you're going for a media attack on their wake up, like, that ultra's coming. They can't resist. Like, it's a perfect time to bait it out. And I think something similar is going to emerge with Street Fighter 6, especially with like the drive impacts, because it's so flashy. It takes a bar, it absorbs like 2 or 3 hits right now, all that other kind of stuff. I think you're going to see that very popular tactic kind of emerge at first, and then a good way to get good at the game right off the bat is to lab against that specific tactic that emerges in the meta, because that's what it is with fighting games, is people are like, okay, I'm going to explore this to some degree on my own, but what's the cheap stuff? What's the really dirty things that everyone's doing? Let me go pick Rufus and go right into Ultra, because that's how you do this, and that's how everyone plays, and here we go. And so if you lab against that stuff specifically, you can get really far ahead of the game and at least, not get scrubbed out, as the term would be, that, the one tactic that everyone's doing that's super cheap and super good, that's going to happen in Street Fighter 6 as well. It happens in every fighting game, but if you get good against that one thing, it's much easier to not get so frustrated by the experience.
I have one more general question. It's for both of you next. But people, especially when a new game is on the horizon, often want to say, if you were good at Street Fighter 4, you're not going to be good at Street Fighter 5 because it flows this way and Street Fighter 4 benefited this, right? So if we're looking at what we see for Street Fighter 6 so far, which Street Fighter past will prep you the best for Street Fighter 6? Jam, you're
to
first.
me, I think by far it's 5. I think by far 6 is closest to 5 in the most ways. Like, there are a lot of similar combo routes. So like in 5, a really standard combo route is like standing medium punch, crouching medium punch. Like pretty much every character can do that for the most part, and that's in 6 too. So there's a lot of stuff like that, but you know, obviously it does have some elements of third strike with the parry and stuff, but I'm almost wondering, like, will that even make it harder? Because you'll be used to being able to use parry the way you can in third strike, and it'll be so weird in 6, like it works in a totally different way. So I think generally 4 and 5 are probably the closest because they have the link system, and they kind of have that feel. I feel like all the 3D games have kind of like a different feel. Where the older games, it was more about like confirming off one hit into super. That was like generally a more common strategy, or like just fishing with stray hits. Whereas in 4 and 5, it's more about like your stray hits with like jabs and medium punches and medium kicks. You're probably going to be able to get a real combo off them because you can link. And it seems like 6 is going to be the same way. So I think 5 is probably the one that people should play if they want to get an early head start. But generally, I just say you should play whatever game you like most. I think that putting time in is going to be worth more than stressing out about, am I playing the right game? So I think you can play whatever you want. I'm playing 3. I'm not playing 5 right now. But yeah, if you haven't played any of them, I think 5 is probably a good place to start.
Yeah, and
John?
I completely agree with JM here. He's dead on with 5 being the closest one, same development team, all that other kind of stuff. And I'll actually say that the secondary game, he said 4. I actually think the secondary game is shockingly going to be Third Strike. And the reason why is that in Third Strike, it's not so much the options you have, but how you use them. And there's a good amount of restraint you have to play Third Strike with kind of in general because of the parry system, just because of the way the game works. And if you just, balls to the wall, go crazy and stuff in that game, it's pretty easy to die. And there's a few characters who can kind of throw caution to the wind. I'm an Alex player, so I do a little bit of caution to the wind with him because, he's low tier, so I'm going to do it that way. But yeah. But with Street Fighter 6, there's so many options to blow up everything that if you're just kind of going crazy and you get predictable, you're pretty much dead. And that's a really direct callback to Third Strike. And so that's where I would say, but 4 is a good comparison as well. But for me, Third Strike is the one that jumps out the most beyond 5.
My inclination is Third Strike as well, but the more I think about it, this seems like such an amalgamation of all of the past Street Fighters. There's a little sprinkling of every, there's the FADC, there's V reversals, there's these different supers from like the alpha days, and really the answer to this will be more manifest once we're all playing it and we find out what components of Street Fighter 6 tend to be the most rewarding. Hopefully we don't see that very obviously, and it just remains this thing of you can approach it any way you want, but that's really hard to do in fighting games, and I don't suspect it, especially on launch, that it will be that balanced out. But that said, it feels like there's bits and pieces of every Street Fighter from before this going into this game, hopefully the best bits and pieces, and I do think that that's true of parry and the Third Strike. We'll see if the best bits of Street Fighter 5 made it in and not the worst bits, but that's sort of how I'm seeing it right now.